Here's something that sounds impossible. You can simultaneously hate someone and desperately miss them. Carl Jung discovered this psychological paradox over 100 years ago, and what he found about emotional complexes will completely change how you understand your addiction to the narcissist who destroyed you. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly why your brain craves someone who hurt you so deeply, and more importantly, how to break free from this psychological prison. Maybe you're lying awake at 3 a.m., scrolling through old photos while hating yourself for it. Your rational mind knows they cheated, lied, and made you feel worthless. But there's this aching in your chest that whispers, "I miss them." Perhaps you've caught yourself driving by their favorite coffee shop, hoping for a glimpse while simultaneously praying you don't see them with someone new. Or maybe you're that person who deleted their number but memorized it anyway. You've typed out 100 texts but never sent them. You've rehearsed what you'd say if they called, even though you know you should hang up. You might be asking yourself the question that haunts millions. How can I miss someone who treated me like garbage? Here's what makes this even more painful: the shame spiral. You catch yourself missing them, then you hate yourself for it, which makes you feel worse, which makes you miss the comfort they used to provide, even though that same comfort was poison. It's like being thirsty in the desert and craving salt water because it's the only liquid you remember. This isn't just your experience. You're not broken, and you're definitely not alone. Millions of people struggle with this exact contradiction. I've spoken to successful CEOs who can negotiate million-dollar deals, but can't stop checking their ex's LinkedIn. I've worked with therapists who help others heal trauma, but find themselves obsessing over someone who destroyed their self-worth. When you try to explain this to friends or family, they look at you like you've lost your mind. You should be happy it's over, they say. They were horrible to you. Just move on. Find someone who treats you well. But they don't understand that this isn't about logic. It's about something much deeper than conscious choice. Your sister might say, "You're smart. Why can't you see how toxic they were?" Your best friend might get frustrated. "We've been through this 100 times. They're not good for you." Even your therapist might focus on boundary setting and self-esteem, which feels helpful but doesn't touch the core craving. Conventional psychology often treats this as simple trauma bonding or codependency. While that's part of it, these explanations leave you feeling like there's something fundamentally wrong with your wiring. They make you feel weak, damaged, or pathetic for not being able to just get over it. But what if I told you that Carl Jung solved this exact problem over 100 years ago? His approach doesn't just help you understand why you miss someone who destroyed you. It reveals the hidden psychological mechanism that creates this addiction and gives you the power to reclaim your emotional freedom without years of therapy or self-blame. Carl Jung was a Swiss psychiatrist who revolutionized our understanding of the human psyche. But what made him truly revolutionary wasn't just his theories about the unconscious mind. It was his insight into how autonomous complexes control our emotional lives without us even realizing it. In the early 1900s, Jung was working with patients who displayed what seemed like multiple personalities. Through his research, he discovered that we all have these semi-independent psychological entities living in our unconscious. He called them complexes. These aren't multiple personalities in the clinical sense, but they're parts of our psyche that operate with their own agenda, their own needs, and their own emotional intensity. Jung observed that when these complexes get activated, they can completely hijack our rational mind. A patient could be logical, mature, and self-aware in most areas of their life, but when a specific complex got triggered, they would become someone entirely different, reactive, desperate, and seemingly out of control. One of Jung's patients was a successful businessman who became completely different whenever anyone questioned his competence. Another was a loving mother who turned into a rage-filled stranger when she felt abandoned. Sound familiar? Jung realized these weren't character flaws. They were autonomous psychological systems operating below conscious awareness. Today, modern neuroscience has validated Jung's insights through brain imaging. When certain neural networks get activated, they can override our prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for rational decision-making. Dr. Daniel Siegel's research shows that during complex activation, We literally lose access to our logical mind. But Jung's approach goes deeper than contemporary therapy because he understood that these complexes aren't random. They're connected to our deepest archetypal needs for wholeness and completion. This is why traditional advice like just focus on yourself or practice self-care often fails when dealing with narcissistic abuse recovery. You're not just dealing with a bad relationship. You're dealing with an activated complex that believes its very survival depends on reconnecting with the person who hurt you. Jung wrote, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. But with narcissistic abuse, it's more complex. Everything that we miss about them reveals what we've never learned to provide for ourselves." Okay, I need you to stay with me here because what I'm about to share might be difficult to accept, but it's the key to your freedom. Jung discovered that narcissists are masters at activating what I call the lost love complex, a semi-autonomous part of your psyche that becomes convinced that this specific person holds the key to your emotional survival. Here's a visual analogy that will make this crystal clear. Imagine that your psyche is like a house with many rooms. Most of the time, you live in the main areas, your conscious, rational mind where you pay bills, make decisions, and interact normally with the world. But hidden away, there's a locked basement room where you've stored all your deepest longings for love, acceptance, and validation, needs that perhaps weren't met in childhood, or parts of yourself you've never felt safe to express. Narcissists have a supernatural ability to find that locked basement room. They don't just discover it, they move in completely, rearrange the furniture, and declare themselves the landlord. The lost love complex becomes convinced that without this person, that room, and everything valuable in it, will die. Let me give you a specific example. Sarah was a successful marketing director, confident in every area except romantic relationships. When she met David, he seemed to see her in a way no one ever had. He told her she was mysterious and fascinating, words no one had ever used to describe her. What Sarah didn't realize was that David had activated her lost love complex around being truly seen and appreciated for her depth. When David started withdrawing, coming home late, being critical, showing interest in other women, Sarah's complex went into emergency mode. It wasn't just losing a boyfriend that terrified her. It was losing the only person who had ever made her feel truly fascinating. The complex whispered, "If we lose him, we'll never feel that special again." This is why missing them feels so physically painful. It's not just sadness, it's your psyche experiencing what it believes is a life or death emergency. The complex sends alarm signals. We need them back, or we'll never feel whole again. Your nervous system responds as if you're facing actual death, because to the complex, you are. Modern psychology calls this trauma bonding, but Jung understood it as something deeper. The narcissist didn't just create an addiction, they activated an archetypal pattern that lives in every human psyche. The pattern of seeking our missing piece in another person. The lost love complex operates on pure emotion and ancient survival instincts. It doesn't care about logic, red flags, or how badly you were treated. It doesn't care that they cheated or lied or made you feel small. Its only mission is reunification with what it perceives as its source of life. This is why you can simultaneously know someone is terrible for you while desperately craving their return. Think about it. Have you ever noticed that the craving isn't really for the person as they were day to day? You're not missing the arguments, the walking on eggshells, or the constant anxiety. You're missing very specific moments. The way they looked at you during love bombing, the feeling of being chosen by someone so charismatic, the brief periods when you felt truly special to them. I know this is getting deep already. Let me give you a moment to process this. What Jung discovered about projection is profound, and it's going to challenge everything you thought you knew about love. Are you ready for the next revelation? Jung identified that within every person lives what he called the Anima in men, or Animus in women, essentially the unconscious image of our idealized opposite. This isn't about gender specifically, it's about the psychological qualities we feel we lack within ourselves. Here's another powerful analogy. Imagine you're a 1,000-piece puzzle, but about 200 pieces are missing. Those missing pieces represent qualities you haven't developed in yourself, maybe confidence, decisiveness, emotional intensity, creativity, or the ability to command attention. Your anima or animus carries the blueprint of those missing pieces. Now, narcissists are like psychological detectives. They have an uncanny ability to sense exactly which pieces you're missing, and in the early stages, they present themselves as the perfect fit for your gaps. They don't just offer to complete your puzzle, they convince you that they are your missing pieces. Let me share Marcus's story. Marcus was incredibly successful in tech, but felt boring and invisible in social situations. When he met Lisa, she was everything he wasn't. Charismatic, spontaneous, emotionally expressive. At parties, she would grab his hand and pull him into conversations, making him feel interesting by association. She called him my brilliant, mysterious genius. Marcus had never felt so alive, so visible, so dynamic. What Marcus didn't realize was that he was projecting his undeveloped social confidence onto Lisa. The aliveness he felt wasn't coming from her. It was his own dormant charisma being reflected back to him. But because he'd never learned to access these qualities directly, he believed they belonged to her. This is why the connection felt so electric, so meant to be. It wasn't just attraction, it was your psyche recognizing what it believed was its completion. The Animus projection made you feel like you'd found your other half, your soulmate, your perfect match. You probably said things like, "I've never felt this way before," or "You complete me," or "I didn't know I could feel this alive." But here's what Jung understood, that modern psychology often misses. This completion you felt was never real. You were projecting your own undeveloped potential onto another person. The qualities you admired in them, the confidence, the charisma, the intensity, the creativity, those weren't theirs to give you. They were always yours to develop. The narcissist became a mirror reflecting your own unrealized self back to you. When they withdrew that reflection through devaluation, it felt like losing part of your soul because, in a sense, you were. But you weren't losing something they possessed. You were losing touch with parts of yourself you hadn't learned to access directly. This projection explains why no contact feels so devastating. It's not just missing a person. It's feeling like you've lost access to entire aspects of yourself that you believed only existed through them. When Marcus lost Lisa, he didn't just lose a girlfriend. He felt like he lost his only access to feeling charismatic and socially alive. Here's what's particularly cruel about narcissistic abuse. They intuitively understand what you've projected onto them, and they use it as leverage. They become masters of giving you just enough of that reflected quality to keep you hooked, while making it clear that you can't access it without them. They might say things like, "You're so much more interesting when you're with me," or "No one else will ever understand you like I do." Now, I know this has been a lot to take in. Jung's insights can feel overwhelming at first, because they're so much deeper than what we usually hear about toxic relationships. But this depth is exactly what's going to set you free. Are you ready to learn how? Jung observed that humans have an unconscious compulsion to repeat unresolved psychological patterns until they're consciously integrated. What modern neuroscience has discovered is that this repetition compulsion operates through the same brain pathways as chemical addiction. Here's the most important analogy you'll hear today. Trauma bonding isn't like being addicted to a drug. It's like being addicted to the relief from withdrawal. Imagine if someone kept giving you a poison that made you violently ill, but then they were also the only source of the antidote. Eventually, you'd become addicted not to the poison, but to the relief that only they could provide. Narcissists create this exact dynamic. Through cycles of idealization and devaluation, they become both the source of your emotional pain and the only apparent source of relief from that pain. During love bombing, your brain produces dopamine, oxytocin, and endorphins, the same chemicals released during cocaine use. During devaluation, you experience cortisol spikes and dopamine withdrawal, literally the same neurochemical state as heroin withdrawal. Let me paint you a picture that might feel uncomfortably familiar. It's Sunday evening, and you haven't heard from them all weekend. Your nervous system is in full alarm mode, heart racing, stomach churning, mind spinning with scenarios. You're checking your phone every 30 seconds. Then, finally, they text. Just a simple, "Hey." Immediately, your body floods with relief chemicals. The anxiety melts away, replaced by euphoria. This is your brain on trauma bond, withdrawal, and relief. Jung understood this as the shadow projection in reverse. While you projected your idealized self onto them through the Anima, Animus, they were projecting all their internal chaos and pain onto you. Every time they hurt you, they were essentially injecting you with their own psychological poison, their rage, shame, emptiness, and self-hatred. But then, when they showed love or attention, your brain flooded with relief chemicals. Here's a specific example. Jennifer worked in finance and prided herself on being logical and emotionally stable. But with Derek, she became someone she didn't recognize. When he was affectionate, she felt like she was floating. When he was cold or critical, she felt physically sick. She started taking sick days when he was in bad moods. She lost 15 pounds because eating felt impossible when things were rocky between them. What Jennifer didn't understand was that her brain had been chemically hijacked. Derek's intermittent reinforcement, unpredictable patterns of reward and punishment, had created the strongest possible conditioning schedule. Her dopamine system became entirely dependent on his approval for normal functioning. This is why rational advice doesn't work. Friends telling you to just leave is like telling a heroin addict to just stop using. The addiction isn't to the person, it's to the neurochemical cycle they created in your brain. Your body craves them the way it would crave water in a desert, regardless of what your mind knows about their toxicity. But here's what gives me hope for you. Jung believed that every psychological wound carries within it the seed of consciousness. The intensity of your craving isn't a sign of how much you love them. It's a measure of how much unrealized potential is trying to emerge through you. The addiction is actually your psyche's attempt to reclaim the projected parts of yourself. Your brain is craving reunification, but not with them, with the aspects of yourself that you learn to access only through the relationship. When you understand this, the craving becomes a compass pointing you toward your own wholeness. This next part explains the most crucial aspect of why you keep going back or thinking about going back. Take a deep breath, because understanding this will change everything. Jung discovered something that modern psychology is just beginning to understand. We unconsciously recreate childhood dynamics until we consciously resolve them. But with narcissistic abuse, this pattern becomes particularly insidious because narcissists intuitively sense your unhealed wounds and know exactly how to reactivate them. Think about your earliest memories of feeling unseen, unheard, or not enough. Maybe you had a parent who was emotionally unavailable, critical, or inconsistent with affection. Perhaps you learned early that love was something you had to earn through performance, and that even when you earned it, it could be withdrawn without warning. These early experiences create what Jung called complexes, autonomous psychological patterns that get triggered in similar situations. When you meet a narcissist, they unconsciously activate these old patterns, but with a twist. They initially seem to heal them. Here's how this played out for David. His father was a successful businessman who was never satisfied with David's achievements. No matter what David accomplished, his father found something to criticize. David learned to equate love with the impossible task of finally being good enough for someone who could never be pleased. When David met Rebecca, she initially seemed different. She praised his intelligence, his ambition, his potential. For the first time in his life, David felt truly seen and appreciated by someone whose approval mattered. But gradually, Rebecca's praise became conditional, then critical, then withdrawn entirely. Without realizing it, David was reliving his relationship with his father, but this time, he was convinced he could get it right. This is why leaving feels impossible. It's not just losing a relationship, it's abandoning your unconscious mission to finally heal the original wound. Your psyche believes that if you can just get this person to love you consistently, You'll retroactively heal every moment you felt unloved as a child. Jung wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." The compulsion to return to someone who hurts you isn't weakness or stupidity. It's your unconscious trying to master an old trauma. But without conscious awareness, you're doomed to repeat the pattern rather than heal it. Now, let's translate Jung's insights into specific practices you can use today. These aren't generic self-help suggestions. They're precise psychological techniques based on Jungian principles. Step 1. Jung believed that you can't heal what you don't acknowledge. Tonight, before bed, sit quietly and speak directly to your lost love complex. Say out loud, "I see you. I understand you're scared we'll never feel whole again. I understand you believe they were our only access to feeling. Insert specific quality. Special, interesting, worthy, alive. But I'm going to take care of the needs you've been trying to meet through them." Micro example. If you feel the urge to text them, pause and ask, "What does my complex need right now?" If the answer is to feel valued, resist the urge to seek validation from them. Instead, call a friend who genuinely appreciates you, or write down 3 specific things you accomplished this week that you're proud of. If the answer is to feel interesting, do something that makes you feel engaged with life. Visit a museum, try a new recipe, or have a deep conversation with someone who stimulates your mind. Another example, if you catch yourself driving by their neighborhood, recognize this as your complex trying to feel connected to the projected parts of yourself. Instead, go somewhere that makes you feel the qualities you projected onto them. If you projected creativity, visit an art gallery. If you projected spontaneity, take an unplanned adventure. The key is recognizing that the craving isn't for the person. It's for an emotional experience that you can provide for yourself in healthier ways. Your complex just doesn't know this yet because it's never been taught. Step 2. Make a detailed list of 5 specific qualities you most admired about the narcissist. Next to each quality, write a specific example of when they displayed it and how it made you feel. Then, for each quality, identify one small, concrete action you can take this week to develop that quality in yourself. Micro example. If you projected confidence onto them, remember the specific moment when their confidence attracted you. Maybe it was how they ordered wine without looking at the menu, or how they spoke up in meetings. This week, practice making one small decision without asking for anyone's opinion. Choose your lunch without polling your coworkers. Pick a movie without reading reviews, or decide what to wear without seeking validation. If you projected social ease, recall the specific situation where their social skills impressed you. Maybe it was how they talked to strangers at parties. This Saturday, practice making small talk with one stranger, the barista, someone at the grocery store, or a neighbor. You're not trying to become a social butterfly overnight. You're proving to your psyche that this quality lives within you. If you projected emotional intensity, remember what that looked like when they displayed it. Perhaps they were passionate about their opinions or expressed feelings dramatically. This week, practice expressing one authentic emotion more fully than you usually would. Enthusiasm about something you love, disappointment about something that matters to you, or excitement about a future plan. Don't try to become confident or socially skilled overnight. Just take one small action that a person with that quality would take. Your psyche will start recognizing that these qualities live within you, not in them. Step 3. Jung believed that consciousness is the antidote to unconscious patterns. For the next month, before you interact with any potential romantic interest, ask yourself, am I looking for someone to complete me? Or am I connecting as a complete person? Am I trying to heal an old wound through this person? Or am I genuinely interested in who they are? Micro example, on dating apps, notice your immediate attractions. If someone gives you that electric soulmate feeling immediately, that's likely complex activation, not healthy attraction. Practice being interested in people who seem psychologically stable and kind, even if they don't give you that intense spark. Healthy attraction feels warm and curious. complex activation feels desperate and life or death. In conversations, notice if you're performing to earn approval or if you're genuinely connecting. If you find yourself changing your opinions to match theirs or exaggerating stories to seem more interesting, pause and ask, what am I trying to get from this person that I could give to myself? Step 4. Every evening, spend 5 minutes asking yourself, what did my lost love complex want today? How did I take care of those needs? What old wound was trying to get attention? Write down your answers in a notebook. Micro example. Today, my complex wanted to feel special and chosen. I started to text my ex when I felt invisible at work. Instead, I reminded myself that my worth isn't determined by one person's attention. I took care of the need to feel special by wearing an outfit that makes me feel confident, and by acknowledging myself for the creative solution I came up with for the client problem. Start today by practicing one of these techniques. This week, focus on whichever step resonates most strongly with your current struggle. Over the next month, integrate all 4 practices until they become natural responses rather than conscious efforts. Remember, the goal isn't to never think about them again. The goal is to understand why you think about them and to gradually transfer that emotional energy back to yourself where it belongs. So what did Jung teach us about missing someone who destroyed us? 4 life-changing insights. First, you're not missing the person. You're missing the parts of yourself you learn to access only through them. The addiction is actually your psyche trying to reclaim your projected wholeness. When you felt special with them, that specialness was always yours. You just needed them to activate it. Second, narcissists activate archetypal complexes that operate below the level of rational thought. This is why logic doesn't work and why you're not weak for struggling with this. Your nervous system is responding to what it perceives as a survival threat, the loss of your projected completion. Third, the trauma bond isn't just psychological, it's neurochemical. Your brain literally became addicted to the relief they provided from the pain they caused. Understanding this removes the shame and gives you a concrete roadmap for healing. And most importantly, the intensity of your craving is proportional to the amount of unrealized potential trying to emerge through you. Your pain is actually your psyche's way of pushing you toward your own completion. The bigger the craving, the more magnificent the wholeness waiting to be discovered within you. This is why Jung's approach succeeds, where conventional therapy often falls short. While traditional approaches focus on getting over the relationship or building boundaries, Jung's method focuses on getting back to yourself, specifically the parts of yourself that you never learned to access directly. When you apply Jung's insights to narcissistic abuse recovery, you don't just heal from the relationship, you emerge more psychologically integrated than you were before you met them. You move from seeking completion in others to experiencing your own wholeness as a complete, autonomous individual. The relationship becomes what Jung called grist for the mill, raw material for your psychological development, rather than evidence of your brokenness. The deepest wounds require the deepest wisdom, and Jung's understanding of the psyche goes far beyond surface-level self-help. Subscribe and hit the notification bell to join our community of philosophical healers who understand that your pain is pointing you toward your power. Your psychological freedom requires multiple philosophical perspectives, and each video builds on the others to give you a complete understanding of your unconscious patterns. Tell me in the comments, which of Jung's insights hit you the hardest? The lost love complex, the Anima, Animus projection, the trauma bond as chemical addiction, or the repetition compulsion? And what aspect of Jungian psychology would you like me to explore next? Your questions guide the content that helps thousands of people break free from psychological prison. Remember, missing someone who hurt you doesn't make you weak, it makes you human. But understanding why it happens makes you free. And the freedom waiting for you on the other side of this understanding is not just recovery, it's the discovery of who you were always meant to become.